Hey, what's going on everybody? It's ETAPRIME back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at the most powerful laptop we've ever had on the channel, and this is known as the Lenovo Legion Pro 7i. And basically what we have here is a 16-inch gaming laptop with a 24-core, 32-thread Intel CPU and an Nvidia RTX 4090 GPU. Needless to say, this thing can definitely put the power down, and I'm super excited to show you what it can do. And of course, in the last few years on the channel here, we've taken a look at a lot of powerful laptops, but nothing matches the performance that this thing can put out due to that CPU and GPU combo we have here. In this video, we're going to take a look at this laptop, go over the specs, run some benchmarks, and of course, we're going to be testing out some AAA games running on this machine. But before we get into it, I wouldn't have been able to get my hands on this laptop without the help from Micro Center. They were actually kind enough to send this over for review. This video is sponsored by Micro Center. If you're not familiar with Micro Center and you're a tech enthusiast, then you really should be. This is an awesome store that you can actually head in and put your hands on the product before you buy it. Whether you need a monitor, some RAM, a CPU, a GPU, Raspberry Pi, printer, basically anything tech related you can pick up in Micro Center stores. They've got 25 stores nationwide and 2 more by the end of 2025. And they've got a lot of great desktops to choose from, pre-built like this Lenovo Legion Tower 5. It features an AMD Ryzen 7 5700G, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and an RTX 3050 graphics card. Or if you're looking for something with a bit more power, this PowerSpec G441 has the brand new Intel Core i7 13700KF, 32 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM, and an Nvidia GeForce RTX 3070 Ti. This thing can definitely put the power down. So basically, whatever your tech needs are, Micro Center's got you covered. So first things first, with the Lenovo Legion Pro 7i, we get a 16-inch IPS display, and this has a resolution of 2560 by 1600, and it runs at up to 240 Hz. It's an anti-glare display, and personally, I think it looks absolutely beautiful, and some people might want a 4K display in a form factor like this, but you gotta remember, we're only working with a 16-inch monitor here, so that 2560 by 1600 still looks really, really good. We've got that larger trackpad here, RGB backlit keyboard, and up front we do get an RGB strip. All of this can be changed from software. I've just got it set up out of the box, kind of got that rainbow effect going. And of course, if you're not into RGB, you can always disable it if you want to. Now when it comes to I/O, over here on the right hand side, we've got a 3.5mm audio jack and a full-size USB 3.2 port. Moving over to the right hand side, another full-size USB 3.2 port. And we also have Thunderbolt 4. So we've got that 40 gig interface. You could connect really fast storage or an external GPU if you wanted to add something else to this unit. But of course, moving around back, we've got a little more I/O, gigabit Ethernet, USB Type-C 3.2, and this will do PD power out and video out if you need it, full-size HDMI, and 2 more USB 3.2 ports. Now, when it comes to the specs of this laptop, it is fully loaded. Like I mentioned, this is the most powerful laptop we've ever been able to get our hands on over here. For the CPU, we've got the Intel Core i9 13900HX. With this, we have 24 cores, 32 threads, and a max turbo up to 5.4 gigahertz. It's got 32 gigabytes of DDR5 running at 5600 megahertz. It is in dual channel, and you could go up to 64 if you wanted to. Out of the box, we got a 1 terabyte NVMe SSD. And of course, we've got that Nvidia GeForce RTX 4090. Remember, we're working with the laptop variant. It's not as powerful as the desktop 4090, but for a mobile GPU, this thing is absolutely amazing. We've got 16 gigabytes of GDDR6, 9,728 CUDA cores, and a boost clock up to 2,040 megahertz. This thing does draw some wattage, and luckily, along with this, they actually sent a 330 watt power supply. It's got that beautiful 240 Hz 16-inch IPS display with a resolution of 2560 by 1600, dual 2-watt speakers, tuned by Harman, Wi-Fi 6E, Bluetooth 5.3, and we're going to be running Windows 11 on this laptop, but since it's an x86 platform, you could install Linux if you wanted to. Now, the first thing I wanted to take a look at were some benchmarks that I ran on this unit, and it absolutely destroys everything that I've thrown at it so far. And the first benchmark we have here is Geekbench 6, coming in with a single core of 2,651, multi 17,160. That 13900HX is no joke, and we've got plenty of cores and threads here. Moving over to some GPU benchmarks with 3D Mark, we've got Firestrike. Total score, 33,472. Really nice. And since we're working with an RTX GPU, I figured we'd go ahead and check out some ray tracing features using the DX11 ray tracing feature test in 3D Mark. We had an average of 71 FPS. And finally, we ran Time Spy. And with this, we scored 20,388. So really, I mean, when it comes down to it, just taking a look at these synthetic benchmarks, this thing is knocking it out of the park. And I do want to mention that, yeah, we are in performance mode, plugged into wall power, because this thing does draw quite a bit of energy, given that we have that 13900HX and that 4090. But these are synthetic benchmarks, and now it's time to jump into some real-world gaming. And first up, we've got Cyberpunk 2077. We're maxed out here on the display's resolution, 2560 by 1600, and we've got ray tracing set to ultra. And remember, with these presets here, it does add a little bit of DLSS, so we do have some resolution scaling going with RT Ultra on, but it still looks absolutely amazing. And we got an average of 89 FPS with this. Of course, taking that resolution down, going down to RT medium is just going to net you a lot more. But I gotta say, this looks really, really great on this 16-inch IPS display. And if you take a look at Afterburner, we've got the wattage of the GPU and the CPU listed. So these are gonna be separate wattages given that we have a DGPU or a dedicated GPU. The CPU is pulling around 100 watts, so that 13900HX is no joke. And the GPU, just with this game, around 160 watts. And that's not the highest that I've seen this draw, because in an extreme test I ran recently on this laptop, we were actually pulling 333 watts, and that's CPU and GPU combined. So, you know, getting this kind of performance that you're seeing right now with Elden Ring on battery, you're not going to get much battery life out of it. But here's Elden Ring, 2560, 1600, max settings, no resolution scale, running absolutely amazingly. And the next one I wanted to test here was God of War. 2560, 1600, Ultra, no resolution scale, so I didn't have to enable DLSS or anything. And with these kind of settings on the laptop, we got an average of 110 FPS. This is one of those games that is a bit hit or miss, but on Nvidia GPUs, even from the 1650, I've always got really great performance out of this game. I was a little unsure of how well The Last of Us Part 1 would perform on this, maxed out with no resolution scale at 1600p. Because if you've ever tried to run this game on any PC, no matter what it is, trying to max this out really does put a load on that CPU and GPU. But in outdoor situations, we can get an average of around 75 FPS, and in these indoor enclosed situations, 94 FPS on average. I also wanted to test out Horizon Zero Dawn, and I just used that built-in benchmark because it kind of covers a wide range of everything that we're going to go through inside of the game. 2560, 1600, Ultra, no resolution scale. By the end of this benchmark, we got an average of 137 FPS. So needless to say, yeah, Horizon Zero Dawn is going to perform absolutely amazingly on this device. And of course, we had to throw the old Shadow of the Tomb Raider benchmark at this machine. 2560, 1600, very high, which with this game here is the Ultra setting. We're not using any resolution scale, and we're using the DirectX 12 backend. We got an average of 178 FPS out of this. And you know, we're only at 1600p. Of course, a lot of these games are still going to perform quite well at 4K using an external monitor. And the final game I wanted to test here was Starfield, and if you're familiar with this game, Bethesda kind of partnered up with AMD here, and we do not have DLSS right now without any mods. So I didn't mod this one. We're not using any res scale here. We could use FSR if we wanted to. I think DLSS would perform much better here with this Nvidia GPU. But the way it's set up right now, 1600p Ultra, 100% resolution, we only got an average of 58 FPS, so we're right there on the edge of 60. So with the stock settings, I'm going to enable FSR and just take it down to 80% resolution scale. And now, 1600p, Ultra, 80% res, we can get an average of 71 FPS, which is a nice little hike over what we were just seeing. But, you know, adding DLSS to this is actually pretty easy with a mod, and hopefully in the future, DLSS is implemented officially by Bethesda. So yeah, throughout the last couple of years on the channel, I've tested out a bunch of different gaming laptops, but this is by far the most powerful that we've seen. And it really comes down to having that RTX 4090 paired up with that i9 13900HX. That combo is an absolute beast, and it definitely offers desktop class performance, but you're really not going to get much battery life out of this if you want to see, the maximum performance on the CPU and GPU running on battery. It's just not going to do it. This thing just pulls way too much energy to run from that battery at those higher clocks. I love the overall design of these Legion laptops. We've got a beautiful 1600p IPS display. I think it looks really good. No glare that I've seen so far, and I do have some studio lights pointed directly at it. The keyboard feels great, not a lot of travel, but it's easy to type on. Having that extra RGB strip on the bottom is a nice little plus if you're into that, but remember, you can disable all of the RGB through software on this unit. And overall, if you're looking for a super powerful laptop, then this is one that I could definitely recommend. So again, I do want to thank Micro Center for sponsoring this video, and real quick, if you weren't familiar, over on their website, they do have a custom PC builder. So from here, you can select each and every part. It'll tell you if it's in stock and what store it's in stock at. Once you get everything selected, they can have all the parts ready for you in store within 18 minutes. And if you don't feel like building it, they also have an option where they can build it for you. It'll definitely save some people time and headache of kind of troubleshooting if something doesn't go right the first time you try to boot it up. So yeah, that's an awesome option. Definitely. So basically, if you're looking for anything tech related, Micro Center definitely has you covered. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. I really appreciate you watching. If you want to learn a little more about the Legion Pro 7i with that RTX 4090, I'll leave some links to Micro Center down below. And if there's anything else you want to see running on this, just let me know in the comments. And like always, thanks for watching.